Lovely story, great story. But can I have someone else read it? And just fair play, she said okay. And she said, what kind of, I was like, white male really, ideally, British. She said, anything else? I was like, well, if you can be tall, with a beard and glasses and called Tom, then so much the better. And she only fucking came through, didn't she? So it's not me reading this story, but some guy called Tom Durrant reading The White Fence. Okay, go.
Hey. So yeah, this is The White Fence by Lina Katzmarcik. There are lines on his face, deep lines that I haven't noticed before. I guess you don't notice things anymore when you see someone every day. I guess that is our tragedy. It's afternoon and it's winter, so the light is coming in through the big screen doors from a sharp angle, and everything seems cold and crisp and colourless. He's sort of fidgety, and you have to know my dad never fidgets. He's calm and collected, and the only thing that ever gives away his nerves or his anger is a muscle that will jump in his jaw. All of us women are. Fidgety, I mean. My mum and my sister and I. We fidget a lot and we can never sit still. Like right now, my sister is tearing at the skin around her fingernails, trying to be inconspicuous, and my mum, always watchful, swats at her hands, like you would at a tedious fly, prompting her to stop. My sister catches my eye briefly and we share a silent sigh. It's like an assessment room in here, being watched, always judged. We all look at my dad and know that he hates the attention. He'd much rather talk about me or my sister, smoke a cigarette and help us face our demons instead of having to dig up his own, under so much female scrutiny. He's always been the kind of person who cares more about his children's future than his own past. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, and maybe it doesn't matter. My mum's got that look on her face, her psychologist look. My friends always envy me for having a psychologist for a mother, but they don't know. They haven't been where I am. They don't know what it's like having someone analyse your every move, emphasising your failures and explaining away the successes, forcing you to be humble, telling you that that's the right thing. Don't brag. Never brag. Failures get taken apart like a puzzle, pieces shuffled around, explained and put back together. They make for various cups of tea or coffee and hours of conversation. But achievements, success, accomplishments, they get acknowledged, they do, with a fleeting, oh, well done, and sometimes a pat on the shoulder between washing a glass and putting it away wet. They don't know what it's like having your mother, of all people, tell you that eating an extra piece of chocolate means that you are emotionally unstable, that you are just trying to fill a void when all you thought you wanted was to treat yourself, after making it through a tremendously demanding day at university, and your head starts spinning and you want to scream at her, but if you did, she would just psychoanalyse the outburst, wouldn't she? She'd tell you with a sad, understanding look across the rim of her glasses that the only reason you are overreacting like that is that you know she's right. It's condescending, and I've never felt anything that's made me feel quite as helpless and impotent, because no matter how I react, she will mould it like Play-Doh into whatever suits her purpose. That's the problem with people who know too much and feel too little. That's the problem with people who refuse to read fiction and who believe that the only thing worth reading is scientific magazines, critical essays, and books with a chapter index that rationally explains away humanity. I think they call that confirmation bias, and it's a bitch. But my friends, they don't know that, do they? And that understanding look, I've grown to hate it over the years. I hate it with a passion, and I know that despite the look, she doesn't understand at all. How could she, when she's never been where I am and has never read the books I've read? Sometimes I don't need to know why I'm eating the chocolate, I just want to. I pity my dad, and at the same time feel a pathetic relief for not being the poor soul in the hot chair tonight. For once, the cold, blue eagle eyes are leaving me alone. They've got another victim to pry on. My dad shifts in his chair again, clears his throat, and there it is, the twitching muscle in his face. The reason my mother is making him bring up old childhood baggage is because his dad died. He's dead. He has been since March, and my father hasn't shed a single fucking tear. He's been annoyed about it, all right, what with all the hassle and the trips back to Germany, the funeral, the fragile old people, who weren't my granddad's friends in life but want to be there for his death. All the logistics have pissed him off enough. So my mother looked at him with her pinched face and said, "And you find your reaction normal?" The way she says it already implies that the answer is no. It's just a statement veiled as a question. He says nothing, lights a cigarette. The golden flame softens his face briefly, warming the tone of his skin, but when it dies he looks dead cold, even colder than before I knew what his face looked like, drenched with fire. His cheeks hollow out, and his skin stretches like parchment over his bones when he inhales. Blue smoke. Why is everything always blue in this house? He painted that fucking fence every month. Every single month since he was 60 years old, he painted that fucking fence. What fence? That mouldy old thing up by the roses. You mean the one in the garden? Every month. The wood was rotting, the whole fucking thing was disintegrating. It looked like shit, and every month the idiot would buy hundreds of D-mark worth of paint. The expensive kind, of course, the expensive kind, and paint over that mess of a fence. Layers and layers and layers. And why does that make you so mad? She's a terrible psychologist, if you ask me. Too obvious and too predictable, and she talks way too much. Layers and layers and layers. It reverberates in my mind like that. Layers of expensive paint covering up the shit. Or doesn't that sound familiar? Don't we all cover the shit with expensive paint, or cigarettes, or chocolate, or good advice for other people? Advice we should probably take ourselves. Why does it make me mad? He's already lighting another cigarette. Hollow cheeks and more blue smoke. Another condescending frown from my mother. Another frown overlooked. Why? Well, who the fuck do you think paid for that stupid paint? Not him, for sure. You can't hold that against him. You gave him the money. Doesn't mean he had to throw it out the window. He painted the fence. Money out the window. I don't understand why you are so mad. He never even considered at least buying cheaper paint. He never had to. My dad just glares at her. For a second, the only sound in the room is that of tobacco turning to ash on the end of his cigarette. An end that keeps getting closer to his mouth, burning. People who don't know the absence of money never worry about it. Just like people who are used to health never looking after themselves until something happens. Meaningfully raised eyebrows, gaze dropping to the glowing end of the disappearing cigarette. Don't you dare compare me to my dad. I wasn't. Why do you take everything I say so personally? Because it is. If he hadn't spent the money on paint, it would sit in the bank account now and make you feel guilty. He could have taken my mother on a trip, somewhere nice, somewhere warm. Did you ask if she wanted to go on a trip? Of course she would want to. So why don't you take her now? He could have said thank you. That's a different matter. All the fucking money for nothing. It wasn't for nothing. We'll stop and stare at my sister. She's this beautiful little thing, sitting in her chair with her feet on the armrest, and she isn't even looking up. She doesn't credit herself for her intuitive brilliance sometimes. I wish she knew how special she was. It would save her so much agony. My dad's eyes are soft when he looks at her. Most of the wrinkles that weigh his face down when he listens to my mum disappear. It's like the cells in a plant growing from flaccid to turgid after it rains. There's velvet wrapped around my dad's words. It wasn't? No. My sister doesn't elaborate. Not until she realises that no one is going to speak, and the blue room starts sinking into this oppressive, awkward silence, loaded with questions that nobody has answers to. Family is just so heavy. Love is just so heavy. So she sighs, and drops her glittery pink-cased iPhone on the table. It made him happy, didn't it? Painting that fucking fence. He was never happy. You don't know that, you never spoke to him. Not unless it was to ask him if he needed more money, or to see whether the radiator was working, or unless they were eating enough. He wasn't an invalid, you know. He was just old. He was your father and he was old. All I ever did was look after them. That was your choice, not your job. What? As their son, your only job was to be alive and maybe, just maybe, sit down and have a simple conversation with them. Ask them, how are you, instead of how is that radiator doing? Silence. It weighs a ton. I wonder when this chubby-cheeked 4-year-old that peed in the bathtub and laughed like a cherub became so insightful, so wise beyond her years. The fence was all he had left to make him feel useful. We all need to feel useful. I watched the intensity turn her eyes slightly acidic. Does she feel useful? He had a wife. My dad's voice is hollow as his cheeks. A wife who was in so much better health than him. Painting that fence was all he could bear to do, and you took that away from him. That's ridiculous. I replaced it with a better one that didn't need to be fucking painted. He didn't want that. You did. He just wanted a fence to paint. We all need a fence to paint, and I hope nobody ever takes mine. Then she picks up her phone and gets up, and she walks out of the blue room, and we just sit in the silence, and the silence is bigger than all of us. The last time I saw my grandfather, he was walking out to look at the roses. The new white fence was too opalescent, too bleached and too waxen for the scene. Like the object doesn't belong in one of those lists, like duck, chicken, tyre, horse. And you have to pick, and it's usually so pathetically obvious. Old man, old roses, old life, new shiny fence. A new fence that was going to outlive us all. A white fence that no one can stand to look at. I remember watching him from behind the ivory curtains as he shuffled around touching the roses. His shadow was walking right behind him in the fading evening sun. It was 3 times his size, and the closer the day came to an end, the bigger it grew. And eventually that shadow was all I could see. He died a week later. Now my grandmother has no one to cook for 3 times a day. The old widower at the hardware store down the road wonders what to do with the extra paint. The good kind he let my granddad have for cheaper, because he always gave him roses for his late wife's grave. We all need a fence to paint, and I hope nobody ever takes mine.